Hello guys, and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode, I want to talk about Warcraft 3 Reforged. Now, if you don't know, I am streaming over on Twitch, Warcraft 3 Reforged. And right now, I had just finished the Undead campaign, so fully through the entirety of the campaigns. And, we basically finished the main storyline, and now we are just hopping into the bonus campaign with Rexar Rokan and Chen. So if you're interested at all in watching that, you can check out, we'll probably be streaming that right after this video is uploaded. So if you want to check that out, you can hop on over to the Twitch, which is linked down below in every single description. You can check that out, and I'll be streaming over there. But the other thing I wanted to talk about is that I just wanted to talk about overall the good and the bad of Reforged. And overall, is it worth it? Now, I feel like now is a good time that now that the, I guess, hype has kind of died down, and now's a much better time to look more objectively at Reforged. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it worth the money, basically? So first and foremost, I'm going to start with the good, because I really do love Warcraft, and I want to see it succeed, right? So first and foremost, in all honesty, I do think that Reforged has really good models, really good graphics, stuff like that. Things that I think StarCraft Remastered really didn't do. And if you look at StarCraft Remastered, it did increase the... I guess it did improve a lot of the models, but it kind of just made them less pixelated. That's basically it. Most of them didn't change. There are a few that changed and do look significantly better for it, but most of them didn't change. Whereas in Reforged, you get a lot of really good models, pretty accurate models as well to what the characters actually look like. In a lot of cases, a lot of the main characters, things like Arthas and Malfurion and Tyrande and all of these different things, Sylvanas, all look really good, right? And a lot of these models do have a lot of lore accuracy, right? They look a lot better than what they did previously, and so if you're looking at individual models, a lot of them look really good. Overall, yeah, it's a great improvement, right? So just overall, really good improvement. The next thing is that the cutscenes and the cinematics are absolutely fantastic. Now, I am a single player of Warcraft 3. I don't do a lot of multiplayer things, right? And because of that, I have really enjoyed a lot of the cutscenes and cinematics that have come out of the campaign that I have been able to play through. Most of them now look phenomenal, and some of them have even changed to be a lot more entertaining. Right now, you will probably see on screen Arthas versus Illidan on the throne, the Frozen Throne, not on the Frozen Throne, but near the Frozen Throne, right before Arthas' ascent, and that entire cinematic has changed basically in its entirety. And it is far better for it. Now, what we didn't get with Reforged is a change in dialogue, which is fine, because overall, the dialogue wasn't the issue. So, most of the cinematics and cutscenes and stuff like that had to fit the dialogue. So most of it's just a reskin. But this one in particular, there was no real voice lines or anything like that, and so it did look really, really good. And there are a few other things that look really good in the updated graphics as well. Now, all of that being said, it is overall a really great single-player experience. If you're in it for the single player, for the map making, for the campaign, for stuff like that, that you could just kind of do by yourself, this is still a super good game. It's still Warcraft 3. It's still super fun, and honestly, I think that the graphics are an improvement if you're playing just for fun, just to kind of like do your own thing, right? I would say that I prefer the new graphics if you're playing the campaign or if you're playing some of these other things. Now, one thing to be noted that's neither good nor bad is that a few of the campaign missions have completely changed, namely Strathholm, as well as the invasion of Silvermoon, I believe, or the fall of Silvermoon, the 5th one in the Undead campaign. Both of those have changed drastically, and it works for both of them, but it's also very kind of interesting. So that's something that I don't really feel comfortable saying, because it's basically just player preference as to which one they would prefer. I would say that for Strathholm, I prefer the Reforged, and for which one is it? The Fall of Silvermoon, I prefer the Classic. So it's just player preference as to what you prefer, as to which one is, quote unquote better, right? Now, with that being said, I want to hop into the negatives and what makes Warcraft 3 Reforged, quote unquote, not worth it, right? So first and foremost, multiplayer is not great. There are a lot of bugs. It's very hard to play competitively on the ladder or on, in pro or anything like that with the Reforged graphics. And the reason for that is because of a concept called visual clarity, which basically just says that if you can't understand what something is by looking at it, it is not visually clear, right? And Reforged has this problem. A lot of the models and stuff like that do not make it clear as to what exactly they are, right? It's a lot darker in tones. A lot of colors are darker. You don't get kind of like the neon green in the grass that you did previously. You don't get a lot of like the sharper colors in Reforged as you did with Classic. So there's a lot of issue with that. Also, a lot of buildings, once they are destroyed, last a really long time on screen, right? So if you were to destroy a building, then that building would kind of crumble a little and then stick around for kind of way too long and then finally disappear. But the building itself still looks almost like it's still up. There have been, if you look at a tower that falls, it can still look like the tower is still there after quite some time. The biggest example I have is something like the castle, which is, the human final upgrade of their town hall. You get the castle, and then if it's destroyed, it really looks like it's still around for quite some time. I've even found myself destroying a castle and then, going and doing something else on another part of the screen, like rebuilding units or something like that, and then coming back and re-clicking on the castle because I thought that it wasn't dead. So visual clarity overall with the Reforged graphics has completely diminished. It is so much harder to understand what's going on screen, right? And, if you're playing competitively, if you're playing up against another person who's got, crazy MMR or who's, playing really well, and you're playing on Reforged graphics and they're playing on Classic, they have an advantage because of that, right? And so, you know, if you're trying to get every little advantage you can, you're going to play Classic. And almost every single pro, if not every single pro, is using the Classic graphics. Even a lot of things, a lot of, you know, tournaments and stuff like that are streamed in the Classic graphics. A big example of this is Back to Warcraft. They are a stream and YouTube channel that does tons of weekly tournaments for Warcraft, but they stream the game in Classic graphics, even though they can do it in Reforged, and the players can play in Classic, but you know, they could stream it in Reforged. They choose to still do it in Classic, right? And the fact that that's happening shows how poorly received and how poorly the visual clarity is for this game, right? And another thing to mention is how terrible the bugs are. There have been so many bugs since the release of Reforged that most of the patches that have come out are basically all just bug fixes of these really annoying bugs, right? You could have critters that are completely invisible, and that could, you know, you could still teleport to if, like, you had a mechanical critter or something like that. Or you could have, you know, a Fire Lord literally teleport through a unit. Or there are a number of different bugs that have been, I don't want to say game-breaking, but definitely game-changing. And if you keep that in mind, it makes that competitive factor even worse. So if you're trying to play competitively, if you're trying to play multiplayer, it becomes much less rewarding, much less worth it, right? Plus, the ladder that changed from the Classic to Reforged also kind of went into the dumps because of this, because there was, you know, so many bugs and stuff like that that Blizzard was trying to fix. They kind of forgot about the ladder, and that also kind of went into the dump. And then on top of all of this, if you had the Classic game and you had that key to the game, they didn't give you Reforged for free. You had to still pay $30 at minimum to get the game, right? Which basically, you know, you could still play on Classic, but I think they also shut down Battle.net after a couple months of Reforged being out to force players into buying Reforged. And if that's not the case, then most players still bought Reforged because most things have to be played in Reforged for them to work, right? And I mean, the difference between Classic and Reforged is pretty different. Not entirely, but I mean, there are notices. It is noticeable when, you know, one person's playing on Classic and one person is playing on Reforged. Even if it's Classic graphics, there is a pretty big difference there. Now, $30 is basically an entire game in and of itself, right? And for this, it was basically just a reskin of the game. And players who had the old game didn't get any discounts, didn't get any, you know, special items or anything like that for owning the game, right? If you connected your account, all that happened was, cool, you got your same name. That was it. Nothing. You didn't get anything for already having purchased that game, which means that you were paying for the same game. In a lot of cases, a lot of people are still playing on the Classic graphics. You were paying for the same game twice, which is hugely detrimental to people's opinions of this game, right? You can't say that overall this is a different game, or like, oh, you know, we added a whole ton of content. There wasn't much added. Nothing was added, right? And in fact, so much of it was lost. If you think back to the classic game, to Warcraft 3, right? The Frozen Throne was so super fun for single player players because there was a very active community for basically up until now of custom campaign creators. People like Turnrow, who have literally reimagined how the game worked and how it was, or how the story would have turned out if you added in different characters, right? And now we cannot play that in Reforged. So an entire community has been killed because of this. So overall, if we're looking at the good and the bad of Warcraft 3 Reforged, is it worth it? And the answer to that is, it depends. To me, I would say no. I would say 100% say no, it is not worth it. Unless you yourself really enjoy the campaign and you really enjoy creating your own maps that you can play in the editor, right? Because those are the two things that are really good. And overall, I purchased the game, I've played through it, and to me, I say, yes, it was worth it. For me personally, yes, it was worth it. Because I love the campaign, I love the cinematics, I think it was absolutely worth it to watch those cinematics. Just for me, because I love these characters and I love this story so much. I've played this game so many different times, just going through the campaign. However, if you are in it for anything else, if you're in it for custom campaigns, well, those are gone. If you're in it for multiplayer, just stick with Classic, right? If you're in it for you know, multiplayer custom games, not really worth it. Just stick with Classic, right? So overall, for the vast majority of people, it is not worth it. So, that's what I have to say about Warcraft 3 Reforged. Anyway, that is going to be it. I hope that you guys did indeed enjoy. If you did, a like is very much so appreciated. And if you want to check out more content with me in it, you can check out my, you could subscribe as well, and then you will be updated whenever I post. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye.